Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business. Welcome to Handle Your Business with Lady Lashley. Today I have with me as my guest Alex Melville. Alex Melville is a national security serviceman, a husband, a father, many more things that he will tell us about. But we are having a discussion today on a very interesting topic, and that is relationships and infidelity and stereotypes and all of that. Alex, thank you for coming on to this podcast.
Good evening to your listeners, Lady Lashley. The pleasure is mine to be here, I suppose. See how best I can impart whatever little I've learned, and hopefully few or a little more may not have to endure the same errors that I may have made, the same mistakes I've observed in other people, other relationships. So, yeah.
Right. Now, we're all human, and I got to say that you're extremely brave, because many of us, we have the conversations, but we don't always feel comfortable speaking out, speaking publicly, especially when we know other people will hear. You wrote something, and I want to read it to start, because it's the basis for this conversation and this podcast episode. You wrote, "We behave like infidelity is the greatest sin in a relationship. If you don't support your partner's dreams, you might as well have slept with someone else. If you are selfish and inconsiderate, it is no different to a partner who shagged the neighbor. Stop stereotyping infidelity like it is the only toxic trait in relationships. Plenty of you are selfish and nasty, but you don't want to fix that. None's greater than the other, but we ain't ready for that kind of conversation." And I like the post because I felt like it's the essence of what Handle Your Business is about. Let's be real and let's have that conversation. So tell me, well, I want to ask you what inspired you to write that post.
Thank you.
Well, what I will ask you to do is to explain your position to all of our listeners.
So, as you have said earlier, humans, we make mistakes, and that includes me. I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I've observed colleagues, friends, people I align with, acquaintances. We tend to have at least one thing in common beside our humanity. We have relationship issues. And some of us willing to admit, some of us, we admit it reluctantly because we kind of under the influence of alcohol, lime in somewhere, and we just start to talk about our troubles. But what is for sure that I've observed that I am guilty of as well is infidelity. And it made me do some introspect on myself as what may have caused me to commit such an act, and how it made me feel, how it makes my partner feel. And I realized that the infidelity wasn't really the issue. It was like a byproduct. There were root causes that were going pretty much unnoticed or unaddressed for quite some time. So basically, in a kind of nutshell, that has been the essence behind writing the post. It was becoming quite overwhelming. The focus that is placed on infidelity as if it's the only toxic trait in relationships. And I mean, I wish it was, because then that may not be the only place that men would err. But unfortunately, it's not. And I would like to place some highlights on the other toxic parts of relationships that can eventually, not always, but can eventually lead to infidelity.
Right. So before we get to that, because that's important, let's back up a bit. You saying, in your own way, men perhaps are weaker when it comes to infidelity. If I'm hearing you correctly, based on how you just said it there, that would be the only place. You understand? Is it that to a man, infidelity, or to, well, not, I guess we're generalizing here, not taking every single individual into consideration. So, people listening, don't get your, don't overthink it. It's just a general conversation. For the male, the man, is it that infidelity is something that is wrong? Is it something that cannot be helped? Is it something that men do because they need to cope, because you guys need to cope with a particular situation? Do you have a take on that?
Funny it asks that. Recently, I've been doing a little research on our ancestors, and not saying that I'm advocating for, but realizing that polygamy was pretty much the way in which our ancestors lived, right? For those of us who believe in the Christian way of life and the biblical times, and we look back at King David, who was the apple of God's eye. He had more than one wife. He had so much, the prophet Nathan had to tell him, he slayed the neighbor's lamb to lay a feast for his friends when he had so much. And there's his son, King Solomon, who had, I think, 700 wives, 500 concubines. And Solomon, what amazes me about Solomon is that Solomon was given the opportunity to have anything his heart desired. And instead, he asked for wisdom to rule his people. So Solomon is considered to be the wisest person to have ever walked the face of the earth. And yet, when I look at Solomon's character as it pertains to women, Solomon apparently had that, to me, in weakness when it comes to the companion of women and the marrying of more than one woman. Now, some may debate God gave Adam one wife, Eve. I would say he gave him one wife eventually, because he didn't make 2 of them at the same time, right? There's also the twist on how men view women, but for me, it gets a little sticky as to our history, how it comes down, because for us, the Black diaspora, a lot of our history is lost. So a lot of our traditions and cultures are gone. And then we have the monogamous lifestyle, which is the European lifestyle, handed down to us. And who is to say that monogamy is the right way? Who's to say polygamy is the right way? And so it comes down to discussion, communication between the parties, and whether or not this is the type of lifestyle that we're willing to lead. But men generally are weaker to women. That the women have that final say. They say yes or no. If a man was to say no and a woman continues and he go and he call rape, the whole society would laugh. But there's no way that that's a funny matter if a woman says no and a man continues. So a woman has the final say as it comes to that boundary. A man doesn't, and he continues to lust. Some may say he continued to yearn for the rib that was taken, but naturally men yearn for women. And that's one part of that. I'm not sure if it's biological or it's genetic, but there's one part that's in us that continues to spiral that more than one woman mindset. There is also how society view society view us, in that society view a man that has more than one woman. Yeah, he's a boss, he's a king, as a dapper, as a shutter. Yeah, my brother, you live in dog. A woman, on the other hand, having more than one man, she's a slut, she's a whore, she's a little wretched nastiness, she's of the streets. So there is that degradation as it comes to one particular sex, and then there's the praise as it comes to the other sex.
Right.
So with that praise entwined with the ego and pride that continues to fuel whether or not you should have more than one woman is also another aspect of it. I remember one saying, they say if a key can open any lock, it's a master key. But if a lock can be opened by any key, it's a useless lock. And things like these, they're set in our psyche and they actually make very deep footing in our foundation and how we continue to operate as a people in society and the actions that we tend to perpetuate.
Okay, so that's a loaded perspective. In several ways. You have the religious aspect. You hinted as well to the historical aspect. And for those of us in this particular region, ethnicity and different aspects. When we look at, coming back to your use of the word toxic, and I suppose you've explained some of the reasons why infidelity is seen as toxic and why men are viewed as toxic in that regard because of the expectations, you know, and what you're supposed to do, particularly in a committed partner, intimate partner relationship. You spoke about other things that, in your view, are also toxic traits. What are some of those other traits in an intimate partner relationship that you consider to be other toxic traits, perhaps worse than infidelity or just as bad as the way it is generally perceived?
I would say just sort of as bad. I would say none is worse than the other. I'd say just as bad. Because whether you take a nail or you take a pin to burst the balloon pop. Just as bad. So how can two walk lest they both agree? That's scripture. In essence, in marriage, for two to become one, they have to walk together. But to walk together, you have to agree. Otherwise, you'd walk separate. And in that separation is the connotative, painful, stressful relationship that would, I guess, exist. People tend to get into marriages with huge flaws. When I say huge flaws, I refer to not having any evaluation as to what your future plans would be, where you see yourself in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, the next 20 years. Where do you see the couple in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years? What are our goals? What is my individual goals? What are our collective goals? So that's one of the downfalls. If it is that this wasn't discussed and trashed out, we can have a relationship where a partner is not supportive, either because they don't see the vision that the other partner has, or they probably don't have the risk threshold that the other partner has, which in itself would create disturbance. Let me give an example. Lady Lashley, you and I got married. And after our honeymoon, I want to take our money and invest in cryptocurrency. And you ain't even know how to spell crypto, so you ain't want to hear about no crypto. You ain't want to be, yo, don't bring no crypto thing around me, you want to hear about that. And here we have two opposing thoughts. And for me, I'm seeing it as an opportunity for us to grow our unit financially, to secure the bag more or less. And for you, you wish that we could use a far more safer measure, for example, probably saving in a credit union. And we're going back and forth on it, right? Eventually, I'm beginning to feel like you're not supporting my initiative, because outside of that, we're going with me as the man who would still feel as though I have that responsibility to be able to provide for my home.
Right.
Despite this being 2022, I'm not talking about housewife or anything, because we're supposed to be working together anyways. Sharing the responsibility, sharing the load. It doesn't mean equally, but at least equitably. We're sharing the responsibility to ensure that the unit can progress as one unit. And here it is, we have this blunder or this disturbance. There is this disagreement. And for whatever reason, we're not settling because I'm strong-headed about wanting to invest in crypto. And you are quite reluctant. And okay, I'm making attempts to show you, look, you know, stocks, wherever these are going, these the way that the new generation, these are the modern age is going. And you are just setting your conventional means and not willing to break out of your comfort zone. And therein, those issues start to fester. Eventually, long before we even notice, that actual issue is forgotten, because then there are chain links and other things that are starting to spiral off this one issue. So then we may have things starting to come up, like I might find I'm paying too much for a bill because here I am trying to squeeze back money to invest in crypto. So I started, man, you always have on all them lights and wherever. So now we're starting to make noise over a light bill. So somebody else can be like, nah, the light bill is so trivial, we're going on tell you. But the light bill is not really the issue at all. The issue is me trying to see whatever funds I could squeeze and get together to invest, because I'm not getting your support. Another example would be a man supporting his wife in education. She wants to go get her degree, all right? But he wants a child. And she like, I want to get my degree so we can get a child after. I'm like, all right, he agrees. So I'm supporting you here, whether financially, morally, otherwise, to get your degree. She come and she gets she degree now, and she's like, well, I want to get my master's now. Like, yo, that wasn't the plan. The plan was you get a degree, and you know, I could get a baby now. She's like, nah, I want to get my master's now. So we have that as well, where, you know, which basically is the same thing as the first example, being so vested in your one part, not realizing that we are toward this path together, not as individuals.
So let me ask you this then. Life is fluid, and so these things do happen. But what are your thoughts on, one, the pre-conversations? If we're talking about a marriage, then conversations prior to marriage. We're in a real world. Many people don't have the conversations prior to marriage. So even if you got married and you had, let's say, 2 or 3 issues pop up that you rightfully said, sometimes we don't necessarily see the issues, it's hindsight. But where does the intervention or the conversation come in? Or is it a case that we let things slide and hold on to the anger and keep going? And as coming back to your initial point, because those things are not infidelity, you didn't step outside of the relationship to be with somebody sexually or emotionally, it's considered less than, not to you, but to other people.
The conversation happening before is understandable. I think, as you rightfully said, as a general thing that happens in our society or diaspora, but that doesn't mean the conversation can't happen. So the conversation could happen after, as long as both individuals are mature enough to have it. What I've realized is that the conversation is important, but what is even more important is the commitment to the resolving the conversation. So I saw it the other day on a marriage group on Facebook, and they were talking about that, you know, things I should talk about before getting married: bills, hereditary diseases, religion, finances, education, all this stuff. Fair, fine, I agree. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. You could have it after. Doesn't mean you can't have it after. But it's whether or not a person be willing to commit to what they agreed to. So we have this conversation, and we are deciding together, this is what we're going to do. And are we going to commit to this? Yes, we're committing to this. Right? And working things through, and then boom, it's sure you're not committing to what you said you'd commit to. So now I'm feeling a sense of betrayal. I'm feeling a sense of sabotage on your part, which could now lead to bitterness within me, which could lead to the disturbance of peace. And well, we know where that could go.
So then let me ask you this now. Both parties in an intimate partner relationship, especially if it is a heterosexual relationship, in this case, men and women, respond differently, generally speaking. So a woman may not necessarily go towards infidelity, or if she does, it's properly well hidden. So you don't have a lot of examples of that, right? But it's easier to find a man who has resorted to infidelity. Why do you think there's that difference in intimate partner relationships? Why is it easier? I mean, you talk about men always are lusting for women and so on, but we're talking here about conflict resolution. Why, what's happening in the man's mind that you say, listen, let me choose this course of action and still try to hold a relationship together that clearly you have a significant issue with?
Most times, in my opinion, a decision like that is unconsciously made. I say that in saying that a decision like that is made without exploring the consequences, without exploring the impact and the damage, basically, of what could occur. Men, generally, much easier would be drawn to another woman than taking the headache or the frustration or the turbulent flight with the other woman they're with, which is funny because the first woman you're experiencing the turbulence with, and you're going to another woman, which to me would be even more turbulence should things go according to how the scale is going. But for men, that's just how it is. I think naturally that's just how it is. They just find comfort in another person. For a woman, because, and it always come back to that societal standard as well. For a woman, she's not willing to just go there and just sleep with somebody else. If a woman, generally, a woman sleeps with another man, then definitely know that she locking off that first guy, because for women, it's more emotional. Coitus is more emotional for women. For men, generally, it's quite carnal, it's physical. It gives that spiritual and mental relaxation, but it's more physical for a man. So a man is more attracted to looks, shape, texture, while a woman would be attracted to heart, emotion, support, that kind of thing. So a woman, it's harder for her to physically cheat with somebody else that she doesn't have that connection with. A man, my boy, a man, a man is very physical in his thoughts and his actions generally.
So
but that's the truth.
I read a book called The Way of the Superior Man, and in that book, the author speaks about sex and having an orgasm in particular as a release, freedom, spiritual release for a man. And I listened to you there in terms of finding it easier to pursue another female, particularly just for the physical comfort. As you say, sometimes you don't want to deal with the headache with your main partner. So you find that release there. How do you then say, well, let's let that slide and come back and perhaps expect the support that you're asking for when you don't want to have the hard conversation, which more than likely may include your female partner getting emotional and arguing, and the things that you pointed out that generally some men don't like to go through that phase. But if you run away from it, how is it going to be fixed if you choose the easy way out or the easier way out?
Definitely won't be fixed. For me, I could just say for me, because they tend to say that men are not emotional. And maybe I'm a woman. For me, I'm very much in touch with my emotions. I like to say what I don't like, what I like, what I'm trying to achieve, the direction. I like to discuss stuff. I like to trash stuff out. I like to put stuff out there and let's resolve this as amicably as we possibly can. And let's press forward. For the man that isn't willing to deal with the issues, then of course, finding someone else is just creating more issues. So that's even more issues to have to deal with. But for the man that is attempting to deal with the issues, he's trying to deal with the issues, he's fighting to deal with the issues, and he seems to be making no progress. And he find himself with someone else who seems to be listening. The person seems to understand, the person seems to support and gather where he's coming from. And this is even more dangerous because now here it is, you're finding in someone else what you expect in your partner. And that's worse because this is very difficult now for you as the man. You don't want to terminate the relationship with the partner, but you wish the partner had the qualities that you're seeking, that you're seeing in the other woman. And I wish I could tell you how to deal with that, but
why are men?
I myself still fighting.
Why are men so reluctant to end the relationship? I've always found this fascinating in the sense that if you want a man to end the relationship quite quickly and decisively, it would be to sleep with somebody else while you're in a relationship with him that he believes is a committed relationship, right? You all believe that even though you can sleep with everybody, the woman should be forgiving and should understand and should take you back. And you are not very willing to extend the same thing to the female partner. However, you're pointing out now to an example where if a man finds a second partner, apart from his male-female companion, male-female partner, that provides what is missing in the main partner that you really wish that main partner had, then you want to still hold on to the main partner and then hold on to this additional woman because you're getting that extra bit. How toxic is that in your opinion?
That's very toxic. It's very toxic. For a man to leave a woman, sometimes he's unable to because it depends on the dynamics. So if there are children involved, you know, he might not want to come across as a father that just ran off, especially if he's a man that's been really trying to provide for his home. I mean, having another woman is not the kind of example you want to have as a father either. But then you're battling between your internal peace and your insanity.
So it's a balance finding. It's a balance finding situation where you try to maintain peace as the man, and this is the position that you can be in now to be mentally at peace to carry on.
Yeah.
So then, how then does the reconciliation at home happen? Because if you find peace, I'm assuming that then you get calm and you get comfortable, and then you may no longer attempt to have the hard conversations at home or pursue getting the result that you initially desired? Or am I wrong?
And the conversation is to be had. You can't escape it. I was reading an article just the other day about Ben Affleck and his marriage to Jennifer Garner.
Mm-hmm.
And he said while with her, he became an alcoholic. He said the movie Batman versus Superman was very tough for him. Among other things that happened on set, the director's daughter died and whatever. He said it was very tough because at that point in time, he was really fighting with his marriage. And he said it just wasn't working. And he kept thinking about the children. And he said he couldn't take it no more. He had to leave. He just had to leave to save himself. He had to leave. And this is a decision that eventually anyone being in such a situation would have to make. Eventually, you're going to have to decide whether or not there is anything worth, or if there's anything left to fight for. And leaving someone doesn't mean that I no longer love you. It just means I love myself more to leave, to deal with me, to ensure that I keep my peace, my sanity.
Right.
For the men who don't leave, we could end up walking the road where we'd read about them in the papers. You'd hear that a man killed your girlfriend or your wife and a child or whatever. This is where this could go. So it's about men sitting down and having this open conversation some more. Men need to talk some more. And especially if it is you're feeling like, yo, I'm sinking. You had to know when to get out. You can't be the frog that sat in the water as it was cold, it's chilling, started to get warm, it's on the stove, you're chilling. Yeah, and then the warmer it gets, yeah, you're absorbing the heat, you're chilling. As it started to boil, like, whoo, too hot now, boy, I need to get out. But you don't suck so much energy, you can't get out. So you end up boiling in that pot and dying. And you had to know where your breaking point may be, that you end up not falling off the edge, rolling down that cliff, and definitely unable to come back. So if you don't have the conversation, you run the risk of getting to that place. You need to have the conversation. You need to have the conversation more than once. You need to be decisive eventually that, hey, darling, I love you, but this isn't working. So you need to call it quits.
What do you think that the general heterosexual female partner can do, given what we've discussed here in terms of one, infidelity by the male, using the two examples of basically both are support related in terms of if that partner isn't supportive of the male's dreams, what do you think can happen in that case? Or what would you recommend to a female partner who may be in this position, listening to this podcast and thinking, well, hey, that's me. What can I do right now? And also, what is the responsibility of the male partner in that relationship as well? Because yes, you talk, I mean, time has run out on us, so we can't even touch the things. But you talk about for the male wanting the support of his female partner, generally speaking, and not getting it. That in itself is mentally wrecking, if I read you correctly. That can lead to, you know, the infidelity. And I guess the infidelity is seen as more toxic than the lack of support. And we're talking strictly here between a heterosexual couple, man and woman, generally speaking, right? So as we close off, what advice would you have for a female partner who may be experiencing what we've discussed here? And what do you see as the responsibility of the male partner in that relationship if the male partner genuinely wants the relationship to work?
Transparency is key. We're having difficulties. Hey, sit, let's talk about this. You need to be open. You need to acknowledge the woman. You should acknowledge where you know you're wrong, or you're lacking, or you're just not showing the level of support that you should. And support could be as simple as him digging a trench to build a house, and you just come down there with a glass of water. You'd rather throw that fork or anything with him, and you just bring him, yeah, glass of water, checking him how your day going, everything all right? You know, the times when tough stuff mentally hard on him, you find some way to make him comfortable. But it's understanding what the goals are, what the dreams are, and willing to make the sacrifices. In my opinion, a lot of women are not willing to make the sacrifices. They're willing to be comfortable. And they like that comfort. They'll dolls up themselves, nice hair, nice nails, and lashes, and whatever. But they're not willing to dig in the trenches. You hardly find a woman that's willing to dig in the dirt, in the mud, and grind with that man to achieve. A lot of people would be like, what you bring to the table? Or wait, I don't believe in what you bring to the table. Once the two of us get to the table and we decide we're going to eat, it's all about what are we going to build together. And if we're going to build together, then you have to understand there are sacrifices that we are both going to have to make. The sacrifices can't fall on the shoulder of the man just because he's the man. It can't be that way. It can't be that way. We both have to bear the brunt of securing the bag while we go forward so that we can both live in comfort. There's a picture I saw with Jay-Z and Beyonce. He was saying, if you're going to build, right, you build with somebody that's going to fight the dream just as you. You got to build with somebody who wants it as bad as you do. A power couple is two hustlers, and that's facts. A power couple is two hustlers, not a hustler and a leech. Anytime the woman comes across like a leech, then they're going to have problems, and the parasite always outlives the host, always. So in terms of hustle, in terms of going at it, had to be there. So whatever the circumstance is, it had to be out there with him, grinding. You can't cook up in AC and watching Netflix and chilling. If now is grind time, now is grind season, grind. Now some people might say, hey, I'm grinding with this man and this man's still hotting up my head. A man in himself now has to come to that level of maturity where he understands that, yo, I done with this run thing. Because honestly, it's very, very difficult to be up and down behind. Tash wore this, Lisa wore this, Shelly wore that. And it really takes away from your substance as a man. So if you decide to settle in and you're going to try to make it with this one woman, she has to bring that level of support and comfort that ensures that you meet to that mature place to realize, yo, she's the woman we're fighting for. We're going to grind together and make this no matter what. But it takes two, and the two have to agree all the time.
All right. So very, very interesting discussion. It's way too short, I feel. Thank you very much, Alex Melville. We talked about infidelity in relationships and why Alex feels that infidelity is not the only toxic trait, and we need to stop acting that way. All right. He's saying that particularly as it relates to heterosexual relationships, the men in those relationships require support. And of course, we talked about this in the context of some of the relationships that we see more common today, where you may enter into a marriage and you didn't have, the conversations that you needed to have before the marriage. And so things are happening in the marriage or in the relationship, and there requires adjustment. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Thank you very, very much. Let's hope that for everybody who listens to this, you can handle your business.
Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business.